Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for waiting. It's been a long day, and thank you so much for sticking with me, for waiting for actual news. I see lots of comments. I'm very glad that you have a conversation with each other while you wait. I hope it's nothing, nothing bad going on there, but I'll check it later. Happy Monday, as happy as we can be. We'll, as I always say, we stay together and we'll resist and conquer. So, if you're joining for the very first time, you're very, very welcome. I'm focusing on actual news. And so today, as I wrote in our newsletter, in my newsletter earlier today, we're going to have updates on President Biden, on Vice President Harris, and unfortunately on incoming President Trump. So, we're going to talk about national policies. We're going to discuss what's happening, what are the appointments, what is the cabinet. We're going to review their stance on lots of issues that matter to a lot of us, if not all of us. And why am I doing this? Because today I have been blocked by a lot of Democrats, I would say, on X, who told me that they're blocking me for this reason, that I shared who has been appointed and what are their views. And they said, mute it, I don't want to hear it. My stance is this: my job is to inform you. And if you are informed, then you have a chance to be prepared in case this somehow applies to you directly. And so, if a month ago such talks about, let's say, mass deportations were propaganda, that I would be the last person to share with you and to give them any type of voice. Today, it's our reality. It's coming in a month and so, right? So it's about 70 days away that the new incoming administration will be tackling those issues. And people who are appointed have certain views. They have been appointed because they share certain views. And also, they are describing what they're going to do. So my job is to share it with you. Now, it's your own right to mute news, to mute noise, to just check out even, and just don't do anything information related. And I share your feelings because I would do it too if I could. But my job is to inform you. And so today, from this perspective, that's what we're going to do. Right now, if you are have been watching on Twitter or X or Shitter as we call it here before, and you feel insecure or you feel not safe enough to keep watching it there, I have pinned my tweet. The pinned tweet leads you to a YouTube video. That's where this live stream will be. So I'm going to give you a second to switch if you wish. If you are coming in from Threads or Blue Sky, thank you so much for following. Thank you so much for joining. Again, I'm focusing on actual news. If you can, or please join this free newsletter. That's where I send all the news. If you decide to support me, I'm forever grateful for you. And lots of you did, and I'm thankful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so honest.substack.com. You don't have to pay, just join in. Also, there, I'm sharing invites to town halls, to any types of meetings, because the idea is to also invest our time and effort in community. Because perhaps you are that blue dot in red area and you feel that you're going to be excluded from just basic conversation with people who do understand you. And so for that reason, community will be very important for the foreseeable future. Okay, so meanwhile, let's check a comment or two. Hey, Brandon, we've been wondering if you were going to show. Yes, of course I will. What's up with dams blocking you? Yeah, I think, Bonnie, and thank you for commenting, and I hope you're doing better. I think, we all are going through emotions, right? And sometimes it's rage, sometimes it's acceptance, sometimes it's sorrow. So I'm not judging anybody, but certainly just explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. Hey, Kitty. Thank you, Olga. We'll be moving it over to YouTube. Glad to see you today. Yeah, so move over to YouTube. The pinned tweet is there, so I'm going to give you a second to do so. Vivian, thank you. Thank you. Oh, you moved to YouTube. I see it. Thank you. I don't know. I don't know. It's just for me, I think it's a lot of it wouldn't be fair if I would not be sharing who's going to be our Secretary of State. We're going to go through it. Time to watch. Hey, Daniel. Yeah, you switched to YouTube too. Lisa is here. Good morning. And yes. Okay, so let's go. First, good news. Well, positive news, and that reminded me on how good we had it before when that was the news. Biden honored veterans today. Today is our Veterans Day, and of course, we're honoring our heroes today and always. We thank you for your service, and President Biden did just that. He traveled with the First Lady, with Vice President Harris, with Second Gentleman and Secretary of State, and of course, Secretary of Defense to Arlington. And he reflected on sacrifice and unity at Arlington on Veterans Day. So President Biden delivered a speech at the Memorial Theater in Arlington, emphasizing the nation's sacred obligation to train and care for veterans. Quoting Abraham Lincoln, Biden noted the ongoing work to bind up the nation's wound. And then he reflected on the sacrifices of U.S. service members. Biden recalled his visit to Normandy, which was earlier this year, where he honored those who literally saved the world and mentioned Senator John McCain's service in Vietnam. Biden shared heartfelt remarks, saying, "It has been the greatest honor of my life serving you." Let's take a look.
This is the last time I will stand here at Arlington as Commander-in-Chief. It's been the greatest honor of my life to lead you, to serve you, to care for you, to defend you, just as you defended us, generation after generation after generation.
So he also referenced his decision to end the war in Afghanistan, stating, "4 presidents faced a decision after we'd got bin Laden, whether to end our longest war in history in Afghanistan. I was determined not to leave it to the 5th. And Biden further remarked, "We stand here today. We think about all our veterans all that our veterans have given our nation, and urged unity, saying this is the moment to come together as a nation to keep faith in each other." Vice President Harris was seated next to Second Gentleman, and so she had standing ovation when she was introduced. She got up, she put your hand on the heart, and that's it. She did not speak. She later, it was reported in the pool that when her car was traveling through the Arlington Cemetery, she stopped and then she kneed in front of a certain graveyard or grave, but nobody really understood what it was. When asked, they did not share who that was, right, and what it meant to her. But certainly she was there. Now, I do understand, and this is exactly how I feel, as to asking for unity, asking for all of those high, feelings that a human can experience, right? Dignity and unity and gratitude. And certainly we're grateful for our veterans before, today, and always will be. But today, when we are seeing a lot of information that is valuable, that is also, dare say, actual and factual, showing that the election was not transparent. I'm not saying that it would somehow change the results. I'm not conspiracy theories. I'm not going to tell you something is stolen, something is this. What I'm asking, I have been asking all week, yesterday after the election, I'm still asking, can we please investigate? Can we investigate why Starlink was used with machines? What were they coded? Because some people who are professionals in working specifically with those machines and hacking and going counter hacking and whatnot, shared it on Threads. You can read it from a professional who did a long description on how they suppose that this was done. I shared a 10-minute video really depicting everything that Elon Musk particularly did, from buying Twitter shitter to the election and how it progressed. All of that exists. Ignoring all of that is very difficult. Ignoring all of that, again, dare I say, is insulting to our intelligence and our own dignity. So for that reason, if we call for unity, can we get answers? Nobody is going to storm the Capitol. Nobody is going to prohibit anybody to exercise this peaceful transition of power. Nobody's going to go against it. But we do need answers, because if not for this election, for the next one, if foreign players learn to do something, they will not unlearn to do the same thing. And also, if you feel that your voting was compromised, will you feel like voting in 4 years? And we need people to vote in 4 years. So for this reason, I'd rather, phrase it in a positive way. Let's get answers. There's still time. There's 2 months. Get the damn answers so people can proceed. We're not ignoring the fact that we are in a shit show, and it's just going to go worse. We have to buckle up and survive, right? Resist and survive. I get it. Nobody's going against it. But if somebody who has been elected is not even signing the ethical code or this agreement, who is not officially kicking off the transition period, just so he can keep the data, keep the information to themselves, and not reveal it to the outgoing administration, and the outgoing administration is going out of their way to facilitate them, inviting to the Oval Office, granting office space in the White House, sharing the data, then we feel compromised, because it's not fair, and so we need answers. And so if anybody's watching, if anybody's sharing this, we need not just voter recounts. We're not, certainly, that this Pennsylvania is still counting and the House is in question. I know it has been announced that the Republicans won, but still they're being counted. So let's keep our head on a swivel. But can we get investigation in terms of bomb threats? Why were they there? Also, what impact they caused, about the Starlink stuff, about the machines? Can we have answers? So this is my long rant. Thank God I'm serious. There's something that is very, very off here. Hey, Terry. Thank you. Thank you for joining. It's very unusual for a president to win all 7 swing states in the way Trump did. Yeah, and then they voted everybody blue up and down the ballot. But, Biden is acting like it's business as usual, and it's not. I agree. Neither party, Vivian, hallelujah, neither party should object if it's on the up and up. Exactly. Yes. Hey, Jack, investigate. I agree. Yes. Bonnie says, if they find no Starlink issue, we need to know that too. Not a big risk. Exactly. Because I have a readout that points to us using Starlink, probably, possibly, very much so, very soon. So moving on from this, President Biden also delivered remarks. He traveled to Delaware after Arlington, where a plaque was unveiled in a ceremony for his son, Beau Biden. Then he visited also his gravesite and prayed there. And there were some senators, for instance, Senator Chris Coons and Governor John Carney, and Governor-elect Matt Mayer were there, all from Delaware. So President Biden also said that he will cover the cost for the plaque and all that kind of stuff. He teared up. He also teared up listening to the anthem in Arlington. And I think it's an important time for him. But we need to meet the moment together. It is also a very important time for us. Because for me, as a Ukrainian-born American citizen, dare I say, again, 3rd time I'm saying this phrase today, and we just started, it hurts a lot. It hurts twice as much because I see losses on all the sides. And these type of losses, those will not be recovered in 4 years. And I think it's very cute to think that in 4 years we will be still having elections. God willing, please. But when it comes to reproductive rights, when it comes to Department of Education, Department of Health, when all of this is gone, or this incredibly rude and disgusting rules for immigration and deportation, there will be generations, right, that will survive in this until it's hopefully reversed. So it's not something that's just gonna disappear, you know. So for that reason, we need to address it. Kamala Harris is a prosecutor. She follows the law and she knows how important silence and confidentiality. Terry, yeah, I hope so. I hope so. But I go with facts. Again, I have my hopes and dreams, but I go with facts that outgoing administration has kicked off transition period. She conceded. President Biden said, just transition the power. Secretary Austin wrote a letter to all military members and the entire Pentagon. Secretary of State Blinken wrote to every single ambassador, just peaceful transition of power. So I'm going by the facts. If something is brewing behind the scenes and something will be happening, okay, because that's what I'm asking for. Can we have an investigation? Case, hey, Case, says, I think this is why the Dems lose. When their electorate has concerns, they're told to just move on. Dems have no spine. You have no fight for us. Why should we fight for you? And thank you, Case, for saying that, because that's my argument as to in 4 years, everybody will be asked to vote again. And then I just put myself in the shoes of somebody who was standing in line and there was, let's say, a bomb threat, and you had to go back and you had to, get all your beliefs and powers and the Constitution, gather it all together to show up again. And maybe there was another fake bomb threat. And you went through all of this and you're in swing state and, nobody addressing your issue. Or you are in Nevada and Arizona, and Brandon is in Arizona. And before all of this is counted, we're already conceding and declaring a winner. So can we wait? Right? That's my whole thing. Why are we rushing to do this? And no disrespectful picks either from Biden at both places. Yeah. I agree. Yes, everybody's agreeing. Okay. So tomorrow, President Biden will be welcoming the newly elected leader of Indonesia. Why does it matter? Because all of this here is, yes, news, but a bit educational, right? Given my background as a diplomat. So let's read between the lines. So officially, that's what our White House says. Indonesia's newly inaugurated president, Subianto, embarked on his first international trip with a visit to China on Friday. So first he went to Beijing, which is a big decision in diplomacy. You go first to China and then you go to Washington. So you're presenting your priorities. So President Biden invited him. He will be tomorrow meeting at the Oval Office with him, which will coincide with the 75th anniversary of U.S.-Indonesian relations and includes a commemoration of the victims of the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami. During their meeting at the White House, this is per White House, President Biden and Prabowo are expected to discuss ways to strengthen U.S.-Indonesian cooperation across a range of areas, including food security, clean energy, democracy, regional stability, and humanitarian efforts. Now, what we need to know, what we do know, is that Indonesia has been in Russia Kazan and has joined BRICS. And the newly elected leader of Indonesia traveled to Beijing first. And then he travels to Biden. And this is an official invite to Washington. My question is, after Washington, is he traveling to Mar-a-Lago, or is he staying overnight in Washington and meeting with Trump in D.C., since Trump is meeting with Biden on Wednesday morning at 11 a.m.? It's also the day when Congress comes back. And, it's expected that Trump will visit spots and places, playing president, right? Sort of shadow president. So for this reason, Indonesia, why is it important? Because of Indo-Pacific, right? Blinken and Biden, and certainly Biden, right? And then on his behalf, Secretary Blinken and Secretary of State Austin worked extra hard, traveling all across the Indo-Pacific region, striking the agreements that in case of anything, God forbid, in case of China wants to eat Taiwan, right, and claim it theirs, that we will have partners literally in our fight. And so Indonesia joining BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, right? Colombia. And so for them, joining the BRICS is a big decision. And so whether Biden will try to kind of smooth him over and still stay within an agreement, because if you look at the map, Indonesia plays a big role in that region, we'll see. Same is also said that Biden is planning on urging, this I'm quoting, urging Trump not to give up on Ukraine. More on that soon. More on that soon. Here's where Olga ties it all together. Hey, Daniel. Yes. Yeah. Okay. We finally got some good news, Lawrence. Norm Ornstein is explaining how House may not have a GOP minority. We'll see. Majority. We'll see. We'll see. Terry, we'll see. This is not something that requires extra science. It just requires a bit of patience and recounting if needed. So let's hope. Trump has no clue how government works. Exactly. And this is also, to quote Colbert, I think was pretty funny. It's kind of sad and funny at the same time, and disgusting. He said, they say that Trump will not be as effective as a fascist leader because he lacks concentration. And so he said, okay, so we're going to have camps, but they're not going to be concentrational camps, just regular camps. He's in power. If he has the House, he has all the branches. If he doesn't have the House, okay. Yeah, House hasn't been called yet. Terry, yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, let's hope. Let's hope again. Now, there was a thing that went viral yesterday with Harris recounting account, whatever. So Act Blue has sent emails yesterday, also sent an email today asking for a donation. And they said we need it for recounts. And the talk was about the Senate, specifically about Bob Casey and his votes in Pennsylvania, which exactly has all to do with the House. And so then somebody photographed this fine print where they said that when you donate, partially it will go to DNC and partially it will go to this recounting account, like Harris for President recounting account. And people screenshot it and made it a whole thing that she's recounting the entire votes and stay faithful and all that kind of stuff. Again, let's trust them in terms of them being Harris and Biden and their team to know what they're doing. And I think it's safe to say if they saw a need, and if they saw not just a need, they would see a reason for recounting all of it, because there could be something on the line, they would do it. Now, if they're doing it or not, we soon will find out. If they're doing it, I'm all for it, and I'll report the heck out of it. But before we know, let's not spread all of this, because there's so much information already. So the last thing I want you to do is go nervous and go up and down this roller coaster. Okay, it's enough. So let's wait. I'm not worried about Trump. It's the new people he has around him. They're the ones making choices. Yeah, I'll share more on that. Only Casey being recounted in PA. Yes, Bonnie. Yep. Okay, so let's move on. Now, what is a fact is that Republicans spent $149 million on the transgender campaign. Remember that transgender campaign with Charlemagne the God and all that kind of stuff? So that was their biggest spending. And this was against Kamala Harris to cast Democrats as out of touch. This was reported by 60 Minutes on November 10th, on yesterday, on Sunday. Now, when it comes to MAGA, right, they have their, the whole image is about them being the victim, right? And so even when winning, this is what Elon Musk says, must be a coincidence. And he only marks blue states with no ID, and he's lying also a lot of times here. But somehow he's not marking the Republican states or the states that they won in terms of ID or no ID. So it's very interesting to present it this way. So you always have to be a victim. You already won, right? So why don't you are selecting the administration. You're sitting in Mar-a-Lago. Somehow Tesla runs itself. Somehow SpaceX runs itself today. Starlink sent South Korean satellite into space, as well as 24 Starlink's satellites, and he was still in Mar-a-Lago whining and dining with Trump and convincing him to hire whoever he wants to hire. So now, this is what Charlie Munger, right? He passed away in 2023. He was the VP for Warren Buffett. And this is an interesting clip that I found yesterday, where he kind of mentioned Elon Musk. And this describes sort of the personality. Take a look.
Because you want to hire the guy with the IQ of 130 that thinks it's 120, and the guy with an IQ of 150 who thinks it's 170 will just kill you.
You must be thinking about Elon Musk.
How do you assess someone when making a hiring decision?
I want the guy who understands his limitations instead of the guy who doesn't. On the other hand, I learned something terribly important in life. I learned that from Howard Amundsen. You know what he used to say? Never underestimate the man who overestimates himself. These weird guys who overestimate themselves occasionally knock it right out of the park. That is a very unhappy part of modern life. But I've learned to adjust to it. I have no alternative. It happens all the time. But I don't want my personal life to be a bunch of guys who are living in a state of delusion, who happen occasionally to win big.
Right, guys who overestimate themselves, and that's, I think, really hits on the spot here. So, in terms of the administration or the appointments that today Trump made, first he pronounced the Tom Homan his border czar. So this is the former ICE director. This is what. Take it with a grain of salt. So this is what he said on 60 Minutes. The former ICE director said that he supports deporting kids who were born and raised in the U.S. to undocumented immigrants. Families can be deported together. Take a look.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
And so this is when they talk about the denaturalization, right? I studied it. I'm looking for somebody to join us soon and explain it in detail. There's several people that, or several categories that fall into this, but priority for them first, I think, is or from what I hear, is the DACA, right? The folks who, let's say, were here legally but had a kid, and the kid became citizen by birth. And so this is what they're targeting by denaturalization. They also have in writing since 2017, it does exist. And this is what Stephen Miller, who has been appointed the deputy chief of staff for Trump for policy. And so his whole thing will be this denaturalization stuff. And it does affect, people who came here through marriage. It does affect the LGBTQ plus community. So I will have the details on it, and I better will have somebody who's professional on immigration law to join us. Not to scare anybody, but to prepare, right? For instance, there was very recently, it was in the news, I think yesterday, where a Florida guy who requested pension and was denied and found out that he was illegally here because he was brought here from Canada when he was 6. Now he's 67. He never traveled, never had a passport, and found out that he has been also voting illegally for the last 40 years. So, it's just good to be prepared. Also, tomorrow we're going to focus on what practically can we do. If again, all of this comes true, what can we do when it comes to immigration, if that affects you, when it comes to finances, when it comes to healthcare, what can we do to prepare and be safe? Because we do have 2 months to do so. And that's my whole intention to share this, right? If it doesn't affect you, then perhaps you can help others who are near and dear you. Because if we think about 20 million being deported, this will affect every single person. Right. And so the governors of Democratic states, for instance, in New York, Hochul, and Tim Walz in Minnesota, they spoke out that we're going to pass a set of laws prohibiting federal government to deport our citizens or our residents. This is what this border czar has to say on that.
I've seen some of these Democratic governors say they're going to stand in the way. They're going to make it hard for us. Well, a suggestion: if you're not going to help us, get the hell out of the way, if we're going to do it. So if we can't get assistance from New York City, and we may have to double the number of agents we send to New York City, because we're going to do the job. We're going to do the job without you or with you. But it's much easier to arrest a bad guy. Like I just said, we're concentrating on public safety threats of human and national security threats. Right. It's much easier to arrest a bad guy in the jail. Give us access to Rikers Island that we've been kicked out of. Let us get the bad guy in the jail. It's safer for the alien. It's safer for the officer. It's safer for the community.
First of all, Rikers Island, and I've been there to check on the conditions. 2 years back, it's sinking. It's literally sinking, and the conditions are awful. So whatever he's talking about, he has no clue. Now, at least on that. When it comes to the cost, right? And Brandon, I think you just commented that it cost $11,000, where we have it, $11,000 per person. That's when you do it the right way. That's when you will be checking people's documents, their immigration documents, going through their cases and doing it appropriately, right? My fear is that it will be so massive that a lot of people will be deported who are citizens or have green cards, or perhaps had a green card, because a green card is only good for 10 years. Then you have to pay to, again, extend your stay, or you convert to citizenship. And I know personally a lot of people from USSR, from different countries, who just never went through the process. They had a green card, they're here legally, but it expired. And so now they're practically legally here, but they came in legally. So will they pay attention to this famous form I-94 that you get for legal entry? Because that form really matters as if you will get your green card, aside from if you get it through the marriage. And I know all of it because I have immigrated, right? There's certain things I don't know. But this form I-94 that you get only when you enter legally plays a huge role when, again, applying for green card, when applying for citizenship. It's very important. Now, if you're here illegally, you don't have that I-94. But this I-94 has an expiration date. And so, for instance, when people, let's say Ukraine war started, people came here. My family was in this situation, and you take this I-94 and it's only valid for 6 months. So you have to apply for your stay, whether it's your immigration path or your visa, whatever the case may be, within those 6 months. And because our system is so overloaded, the USCIS is so overloaded, and there's not many people, while your documents are there, your I-94 still can expire. And so when they grab your case and open it, now you're sort of illegally here. And so there's a lot of gray area. I doubt that they're going to look into it. I think they're going to go massively. And I hope they don't go by looks. Same way as, in Germany, right? You have a big nose. Okay, now we go. So that's, and if white folks who are very slow think that it somehow will not affect them, it will, it might. It might. Don't think that you're safe on this journey. Now, Latino voters who endorse Trump still believe that he's not going to deport them, and listen for the reason.
If they let in hundreds or thousands of people who already have criminal records, if deporting them creates a mass deportation, I'm all for it.
But what if rounded up in all of that are people who work on a farm, they're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do? Does that worry you?
That wouldn't be fair. Of course, they need to make sure that they don't throw away, they don't kick out, they don't deport people that are family oriented.
The question.
Family oriented? They're not going to deport people who are family oriented. Your family orientation will be the last thing they're going to think about. Anyway, so next, it was confirmed that the representative from New York, from actually Long Island, Elise Stefanik, is now appointed as the or will be appointed as the ambassador to UN. Now, she lacks any experience in foreign policy. It seems like her only quality is loyalty to Trump through the years. She has been fighting for his crazy stuff through the years, even during his, I call it shadow presidency, because he literally never went away. This is what she said when she was asked if she's MAGA.
Very much.
Good you being called ultra MAGA. I am ultra MAGA. I'm proud of it.
I'm ultra MAGA and I'm proud of it. Now, next, Trump selected Lee Zeldin to lead the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, adding a second New Yorker to his cabinet. Now, Zeldin has shared pro-Russian views and was criticized for running his campaign, right? He was running for governor in New York against Hochul. He was criticized for having donations tied to a Russian oligarch. So, again, environment, yeah, that's what he tweeted about the fires in 2023 to Kathy Hochul, right? She says, for most of New York, yesterday had the worst average air quality since the passage of the Clean Air Act. It's clear that we're facing a climate crisis, and it's on all states and nations to blah, blah, blah. He says, Katie is well aware that the wildfires weren't caused by climate crisis, but she's really banking on you being too dumb to know the difference. Environment, really? That's the guy who will go with this drill, baby, drill, baby, drill. Now, he was on the news and he shared what his plans will be. Take a look.
One of the things that's been a big focus of the Trump campaign is to get through the bureaucracy that exists in Washington and to deregulate. The EPA has been in some ways an enemy to a lot of these businesses across America because they've had a long arm. Now, post-Chevron decision from SCOTUS, you see a different environment in terms of how much a regulatory agency can get away with. What are you planning to do at EPA?
One of the biggest issues for so many Americans was the economy, and the president was talking about unleashing economic prosperity. Through the EPA, we have the ability to pursue energy dominance, to be able to make the United States the artificial.
Safe to say he has not much understanding. So clean energy and all that kind of stuff will be something that has been, right? Even though in his statement, Trump says that, we will be maintaining the highest. It's very interesting that he says maintaining at this point, right? So do we have the high standards, environmental standards? Anyway, he says we will be maintaining the highest environmental standards, including cleanest air and water on the planet. Well, that's big BS. Compare that to Europe. That's not even clear by far. But essentially, Lee, with a very strong legal background, has been a true fighter for America First policies. He will ensure fair and swift regulatory decisions that will be enacted in a way to unleash the power of American businesses. So the drill, baby, drill situation, that's it. Now, next, Marco Rubio was just, where did I lose it? Was just appointed this night as Secretary of State, so equivalent to Anthony Blinken. I found an interview that he gave a couple of weeks ago, just a few weeks ago, talking about Iran, talking about Israel. He's very pro-Israel. He's very much, he sees Iran as the main enemy, and bombing Iran and its proxies, it's good. When asked about the deal, right, because Trump got out of the nuclear deal that prohibited Iran to, or at least had some type of checks and balances with Iran. Trump got out of it, claiming that he will get into something better, which he never executed. So the question was to him as to, but what can we count on if what are the chances that Trump will get a deal done this time if he hasn't done it last time? To which he said, well, it's really a problem with Iran, right? So if they want to have a deal with us, they will be having. If not, then they're a legitimate target, pretty much. And so then the conversation turned more into Ukraine. And the host asked that, listen, but Iran is one of the biggest suppliers of short-range missiles and other equipments, including chips, for Russia, right? And also Russia, what she didn't say, but Russia is now reportedly, I saw the agreement, is entering an agreement of military cooperation and training, same as they have with North Korea, now with Iran. And they will be signing that before the end of the year. So the troops will be expected to join Russian troops, perhaps even before the year is over. So this is what he says. Take a look.
One of the things that's been a big focus of the Trump campaign is to get through the bureaucracy that exists in Washington and to deregulate. The EPA has been in some ways an enemy to a lot of these businesses across America because they've had a long arm. Now, post-Chevron decision from SCOTUS, you see a different environment in terms of how much a regulatory agency can get away with. What are you planning to do at EPA?
One of the biggest issues for so many Americans was the economy, and the president was talking about unleashing economic prosperity. Through the EPA, we have the ability to pursue energy dominance, to be able to make the United
Am I showing you an old video? I'm thinking, we just saw this guy. Yes, it's about actually Marco Rubio. So that's the video. Take a look.
Little bit. Iran has been supplying Russia with weapons in its war against Ukraine, including drones,
Correct.
including short-range ballistic
That's
missiles.
the right video.
And yet Donald Trump will not say that he wants Ukraine to win the war. Are you concerned about the message that sends to Vladimir Putin and the supreme leader?
No, because I think, unfortunately, I'm not on Russia's side, but unfortunately the reality of it is that the way the...
Wait a second here. Why would somebody even say here, I'm not on Russian side? That was not the question. Why are you even going there? Hella weird. Let's continue.
war in Ukraine is going to end is with a negotiated settlement. And I want, and we want, and I believe Donald Trump wants, for Ukraine to have more leverage in that negotiation. But in order to be in a position to be a broker who can bring about that agreement, I think he's going to preserve what he says. He approaches these things as someone not in politics or diplomacy, but as someone with a background in business. It's not going to be easy to do, but at least there's a defined goal. The Biden administration has not defined what victory means in Ukraine. They have not defined this is what victory looks like. And if you press them, they will tell you what I have just said to you, which is the way this conflict ultimately ends is with a negotiation. And so I don't know why we can't just say that. And we hope that when that time comes, there is more leverage on the Ukrainian side than on the Russian side. That really is the goal here in my mind. And I think that's what Donald Trump is trying to say, but he's going to say it like a businessman. But Biden won't even tell us what victory is.
Well, Senator, you say negotiated settlement. Here's what Senator J.D. Vance said. He said effectively that he would like a peaceful settlement that, quote, looks something like the current line of demarcation between Russia and Ukraine that becomes like a demilitarized zone. President Zelensky says that plan is too radical, that it's basically appeasement. It means Russia would get to keep the land that it's illegally claimed. Do you agree that that sounds radical?
Well, I think what the deal looks like will be up to the parties when they negotiate it. Obviously, Zelensky is not going to come out there and say, from a negotiating standpoint, he's not going to go out there and predetermine what it looks like. So I understand why he wouldn't want to go out there and define what it looks like at the front end. But I think we as Americans, the reality of it is we are investing billions of dollars into this effort. And it's important that as we invest this money into this effort, that we tell the American taxpayer this is what the money's going towards.
Senator,
ultimately, it's not endless war, right?
We're almost out of time. So very quickly, just to be clear, would you be comfortable accepting the current lines of demarcation as Senator Vance seems to be?
I would be comfortable with a deal that ends these hostilities and that I think is favorable to Ukraine, meaning that they have their own sovereignty, that they don't become a satellite state or a puppet state that is constantly held hostage by the Russians.
Is that a no, Senator?
But
is that a no?
Is that a what?
Is that a no?
Well, I'm not going to prejudge any agreement. I will tell you the Ukrainians don't want to live in a country where the Russians...
Dude is clueless as it can be. And he's waiting for his orders, right? From Musk and Putin and, give me something to say. I have no opinion, certainly. Now, what the problem is with Trump's plan, right? It has been leaked to the media. Wall Street Journal reported on it, and certainly it has been discussed. Now, in order to continue, right? Please follow me, right? Because that's just, it's a thing, and then I connect it together. Trump's team says, in order to continue receiving aid, same as Ukraine is doing now, Ukraine will have to agree to the following. First, to agree not to join NATO for at least 20 years. That's a whole 2 generations. Second, to freeze the conflict, meaning to let Russia keep all the occupied areas and create a zone, a buffer zone. Imagine map of Ukraine taking over areas, including Crimea, including the area close to Russia, so the juicy areas. Now they will create a buffer, and they're looking to 800 kilometers buffer, which will go. This is, let's say, this is the, I'll have to have a map tomorrow. Okay. So anyway, if you have trouble understanding, I'll have it tomorrow again. You have the area, right? You have the border, right? To the occupied areas. And so they want to create another buffer zone that will go inside of Ukraine. Now, if you think about Kharkiv, where I was born and my family's from, this will fall into that buffer zone. Kiev will fall into the buffer zone. So this interesting plan is not just freezing the occupied areas, it's also completely making the areas that are very important to Ukraine, certainly the capital of Kiev, the Ukrainian big city, Kharkiv, the first capital of Ukraine, will make them inefficient and inactive. We'll put them in a buffer zone. So what? Ukraine cannot have any army, any security, any forces there. Now, if we read into the fine print of the Marshall Plan, or whatever you call it, the agreement that Congress voted on that ultimately gives aid to Ukraine. If we read into the fine print, we can certainly understand that no conflict, no aid. So if the conflict is frozen and there is nothing flying above Ukrainians' heads, there will be no aid. So this is falling for an okie doke, saying that, oh, you're going to do all that, and in return, you're going to get aid. Ukraine will not be able to rebuild and stay strong and defend themselves. Meanwhile, Russia has all the possibility, has access to the sea also, will have all the possibility to welcome more North Korean forces, Iranian forces, and will get all types of equipment. And then it's a matter of time till Russia takes over Ukraine, the other part, that also has the equipment that they previously received from the US. Then the next question will be, what will be the next target? And that could well be Poland. And so for that reason, I'll have a readout soon, but as we go with my list, the Polish president and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, they're meeting Trump soon. And they're hoping that somehow they'll smooth him over. All of that is in a backdrop of actual President Biden, who has immunity. Just putting it out there. And Blinken and Austin, everybody is, thank God, healthy and able. But somehow, we're caught in this shit show. Germany's government collapsed. I reported on that last week. They're dealing with their own stuff. And certainly with depression when it comes to finance, and probably mentally too. France, lack of support within it. UK, stronger. And UK said, we don't welcome any type of frozen conflict in Ukraine, because that just means we're giving Russia ability to rebuild and strike stronger. When it comes to Kursk area, remember when Ukraine had that incursion into Kursk? And I hear that some Ukrainian reporters who blocked me today because I confronted them about this lie, who stated that, Russia will trade the Kursk region for the Kharkiv region before they freeze. No, it is reported that Russia now has already 50,000 forces, including new North Korean forces, and are preparing for this extra offensive. Again, it's a special operation to push Ukrainians out of Kursk. So let's not lie. And that's why it pisses me really off. And this is not personal. This is about policy. This is about foreign diplomacy. It pisses me off when I hear this discussed by reputable people in Ukraine when it comes to Trump. Take a look.
Well, I hope it will be good. That's the reality today. It's a new reality, and Ukraine has to adapt. Of course, a lot of people are very anxious in Ukraine about Donald Trump's position, and the recent report by the Wall Street Journal is quite concerning about a potential plan to sort of put pressure on Ukraine not to join NATO for 20 years. However, we don't believe that's going to happen.
I believe in Santa. And you believe that that's not going to happen. And God bless you. And I will not judge. I'm the last person to judge Ukrainians when you are caught up in between literal fire around you. You're in the war. Maybe believing is what's going to save you. And I will be the last to judge. Again, my family lost everything we had. So, if God forbid I were in your shoes there, I probably would tend to believe too. Now, there is a new defense minister, or Secretary of Defense, sorry, coming up for Trump. And this is Waltz, the one, not the good Waltz, the one with the T. He gave a very extensive interview, which was 8 minutes. I want us to take some time to listen to it, because the first 1.5 minutes are gaslighting. They're blaming Obama for Crimea. And again, I'm not saying Obama is not inefficient, to put it, in a nice way. 2014, Russia literally stole Crimea. Came in, stole it, put a fake referendum, and that's it. Obama didn't do anything. This is on his account. Now, they're blaming this, they're blaming Biden. Ukrainians used this interview, and they cut out the first 1.5 minutes. And today they started praising this Waltz guy, saying, oh my God, he is great. He's so much better than Austin, than everybody. But somehow they're skipping the other 6.5 minutes where it flips. And I want to guide you through it. So let's start. This is the gaslighting part.
Afghanistan, helping to try to build this force, and then seeing the policy side on the other side. How has it influenced how you're looking at Ukraine? Right. I mean, we're training Ukrainians in Germany and Hohenfels and Grafenwehr and things like that. Not in Ukraine. We're supplying them, obviously. And I know you've supported the aid for Ukraine, but you've also said this can't be a blank check forever. Right. So what's the path here, do you think, for U.S. policy in supporting the Ukrainians?
Well, I'll point out, and I don't mean this to sound as partisan as it probably will, but it's just a fact that the Obama administration did not provide lethal aid. President Trump did, and it was Green Berets that were working with the Ukrainians after the first invasion in 2014, all the way up until 2022. And thankfully, they did have those javelins and at least a few Stingers, and the Green Berets there training them, and actually the Florida National Guard right before the invasion. I write about my visit to them in the book. Look, I think that's been a series of policy failures. If you're going to engage, you do it to win. And I talk about how I was there the month before the invasion, and in engaging with the embassy, they were so frustrated because the Ukrainians were saying, please arm us now, and maybe we can.
Hold on. Zelensky was asking for barbecues. He was saying nobody will invade, we'll go for barbecues. The last person to speak to him was Kamala Harris. But Mike Waltz continued.
Deter this war from happening. Put the sanctions on Russia in place now, and maybe they'll think twice. But
also, when we talk about javelins, right? Javelins were traded for what? For potential dirt on Biden. Let's not twist it here.
The tone and tenor from the Biden administration was, no, if we give Stingers, if we give Harpoon anti-ship missiles, if we give more and more javelins, that will be too provocative to Putin. That will be too escalatory. We're trying to de-escalate. That will give him the excuse that he's looking for to invade. And I think the opposite has been proven to be true, that kind of passivity was actually attracted his aggression because he thought he could get away with it. So
now he voiced exactly what Ukrainians have been saying. Think about sales. Think about Trump's situation. He always voices what you are saying. He's repeating it back to you to win your approval. Now that's where it starts. But the question is what he's going to do. That's where it flips.
And, there's been whether it was lifting the sanctions on Nord Stream 2, whether it was comments like minor incursions, I'm not sure how we'll respond. And I think the withdrawal from Afghanistan and that debacle, Putin thought he could get away with it.
Excuse me, who did that withdrawal from Afghanistan and that debacle? Who agreed to leave all the equipment in Afghanistan? Who welcomed 5,000 Taliban people to Camp David on 9/11?
Did in 2014 under Obama Biden. A lot of the same people are in charge in the administration now and thought he could get away with it again. In terms of how it's really influenced my approach, it's actually the years of Afghanistan and policy drift that happened. I mean, year after year, it was, we've got to keep investing because the alternative is so bad. And we're already seeing that argument now of, yes, it's settled into a stalemate. Yes, we wish we had provided, the lethal aid sooner and faster and didn't have handcuffs on it. But
first of all, I wish we didn't have the handcuffs on it, was said by former now Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, because I was in the room exactly when he said it to a reporter from NBC. So this was not said by Biden or Blinken or whatever the case may be. Now, also with all this talk, right? And he comes out here as, he's on the right side of history, right? Because he wanted to push Russia away, right? He wanted to be more aggressive. He wanted to be dominant. He wanted to feel the balls, right? That he might have. But Biden didn't do any of it. Now, remember what Republicans were saying. Just remember what they have been saying since the beginning of the war. Who has been saying, oh my God, we're entering World War III. Let's not provoke the nuclear power. Putin is going to nuke us. He's going to nuke us. Everybody's going to nuke everybody, right? Who said that? Was that Biden or was it Republicans? Who then withheld aid to Ukraine for half a year, that Ukrainians started literally dying at the front lines, and then you started slow dripping the aid? Who did that? Were you representative at that time, sir? Let's continue.
We're finding ourselves, but the alternative's so bad, we just have to keep pouring more and more in without a clearly defined strategy for what.
Pour more and more in. So 99.9% of all that you're pouring in is pouring literally into Pentagon. When Biden signs off on PDA, not that type of PDA, but Presidential Drawdown Authority, let's say he says 423.25 million. Where do those numbers come from? Because then we receive, and if you were to read, which I hope you will, because that's Pentagon sends the contracts every day, and I'm talking to this Sir Mike Waltz, because he will be drafting those contracts. We receive the contracts, right? Media, and you can open it. And literally, Biden says, 423 million has been allocated to Ukraine. And then you see, okay, we have 38 F-35s at 8 million each. And then it's this and this and this. And then if you put it all together, it comes down to exactly the number that Biden has allocated to Ukraine. Right? So that's Pentagon literally buying equipment with the money that they just got from Biden. Biden writes a memorandum and says, Blinken buy the equipment from for Pentagon, order it for Pentagon because we have, outstanding conflicts and here and here and here. So Blinken is writing a memo saying it's qualified because we need that, right? Pentagon is getting the money, is ordering from Lockheed Martin, which, by the way, is already $2 billion in, including Boeing as well, because money was very slow during that aid, right? That when the Congress did not allocate aid for Ukraine, Pentagon could not pay its contractors for the new equipment that they already pre-ordered. So Pentagon actually effed up Boeing and Lockheed Martin, and their shares went down because they literally had to invest to keep on producing. I have whole letters. I can show it to you. And so Pentagon orders F-35. And let's say they put a price tag, $8 million. For that $8 million, they say, equivalent F-35, we're going to give Ukraine F-16. So literally they're overpricing old equipment that has been in NATO regions, meaning in Poland, in Baltic states, in Germany, that has been there for years. They're pricing one old plane equivalent at a new plane that Pentagon is ordering, so Pentagon can get the full money. Does it make sense? So who is pouring into what? Especially somebody who will be in this position, leading Pentagon, saying this is less than smart.
What success looks like. And if we say kind of, well, eventually we're going to end up in a diplomatic, some type of negotiation, probably, because expelling every single Russian from every inch of Ukraine, including Crimea, is probably not realistic, then let's articulate that now, at least behind closed doors. And my frustration in Congress has been there's been an absolute refusal to do that. It's just sign over a blank check or you're somehow pro-Russian. And that's just
blank check. Who was signing a blank check? And then I have a question. Is Biden signing a blank check to Blinken? Because Blinken accepts the money from Biden. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that? I can show you all the memorandums that Biden is writing this money to Blinken. He's allocating it to Blinken. So is Blinken shopping? Who's shopping here with the blank check? Or is Blinken signing a blank check to Pentagon? So Austin is shopping. Is Austin shopping? Or is Boeing shopping? Or Lockheed Martin is shopping. Who's shopping with the blank check? Zelensky never got that goddamn check. And you know why Zelensky says that he only got 10% of equipment? Why? I'll explain it to you. It's very easy. So Congress did delay, as I told you, Congress did delay the aid. Yeah? And so when they delayed the aid, as I mentioned, Pentagon could not pay its contractors, mainly Lockheed Martin and Boeing, right? For missiles, for F-35s and all that kind of, they have really fancy drones, AI technology, all that kind of stuff. So they couldn't pay it off. So for that reason, they said, hey, Poland, can you please give the F-16s to Ukraine, right? Because we're now ordered and we can't pay yet, but because Congress is like not allocating the aid, but they're already producing, so you're soon going to get something. And Poland said, no, because we're not certain that we're going to get something soon. Your Congress is not paying, your contractors are not producing. All of this is like wishy-washy. We're not going to give up what we have. Baltic states, also Germany. Oh, we're not going to give up what we have because we don't know when we're going to get something. And what if Putin just marches on us next thing? Because guess what? Putin knows all of this. He knows all of this because of those interesting foreign actors. So then Poland doesn't give it. And then whatever Ukraine receives, for instance, let's say it's a tank. Tank is allocated to Ukraine. Tank comes in without equipment. It can't shoot, it can't drive. It's like literally like a piece of shot. And then Ukrainians are complaining, why did we get this type of thing? We can't use it. Because Poland takes away everything that is useful for them and gives up whatever they can give up. Don't judge Poland. But I'm just explaining why there is a huge delay. It's not Joe Biden. It's not Blinken. It's not Austin. It's not Pentagon. It's not Boeing. It's not Poland. It's the entire shit show that has been here programmed by people who talk about blank checks. Let's watch.
A ridiculous false choice.
And do you see there's about $5.2 billion left, I think, in the presidential drawdown authority for Ukraine. That's going to run out in a few months after the election, obviously.
I told everybody, in the beginning of the year, I said, if we don't use what leverage we have, and what leverage we have in Congress is the power of the purse, to force the administration to articulate what is success in line with our interests here and how long. I mean, I go to my town halls and they're like, wait a minute, you're paying Ukrainian teachers and first responders? And
who's paying teachers and first responders? Last time I checked, it was Netherlands who paid the teachers. Were you paying the teachers? You're a congressman. Were you paying the Ukrainian teachers? Who paid Ukrainian teachers? Also, may I explain, when something is allocated to Ukraine for, let's say, ambulances or like food or aid, any type of aid that is not military aid, right? USDA, well, USDA, whatever people call it, they have an office, right? They have an office in Kiev, in Ukraine, in the same building where the embassy is. Why do I know it? I know it. And they hired the whole office to go there and to allocate aid. So they receive the aid, they travel across Ukraine, they know who needs what, and they are signing the checks right there and then in Kiev exactly to purchase this number of this and that number of that, right? So it's literally USAID is monitoring every type of aid. It's not like we gave Ukraine billions of dollars and now Zelensky has been shopping and he's running out of money. All of that is complete bullshit nonsense. Continue.
I've got my first responders asking me what the hell, right? That's, you know, the fact that President Biden waited 2 years to have an Oval Office address.
Sorry, first responders, he talks about FEMA. There's national budget, there's international budget, there's military budget. Everything that is going to Ukraine is literally 6% of annual Pentagon budget. Let's begin there. FEMA has its own budget that Biden funded. So what responders are saying, where is my thing? And you're like connecting those two. It's like oranges and apples.
To say why this was in our interest. Look, no, I'm glad you pointed that out. I told them, you know, earlier this year, they're going to run out by the end of this year, and we're going to be having, darn it, the same debate, you know, billions of dollars later. It's been enormously frustrating for me. And you asked too, kind of how my, you know, time on the ground in Afghanistan and Africa is affecting my thinking. I also write in the book on, yes, we absolutely were thankful.
And we're selling a book.
For our NATO allies to be on the ground in Afghanistan. The soldiers were great, but their equipment was often terrible. It was incompatible. It was in the maintenance on it was not good at all. And their hands were tied by their capitals. If you remember the debate back then, you followed this long enough, the national caveats, where we would get in a firefight and ask for German helicopters to come help us. They weren't allowed by Berlin. They had to take a very passive approach to any type of operations. The French special forces, even that I was embedded with, we had to get really creative on how to get them engaged offensively. They could only take a defensive kind of shoot if shot at type of approach. And in many ways,
so all of this just feeds the narrative that we're the failing nation, we are the banana republic. We were asking Germans for some helicopters, but we couldn't do it. It's just very remarkable that person that is so far detached from reality is now running, well, 2 months in, will be running Pentagon. That's very interesting.
Ways it moved the effort backwards. And so that I found enormously frustrating. And when I look now where you've got the largest land war since World War II literally on their doorstep, and you have some allies stepping up, like in Afghanistan, where they went to where the fighting was in the south, but others refused, where you have the Poles and the Baltics, the Romanians and the British and others really contributing, but you have the large economies like Germany, Italy, France, Spain, still not living up to their bare minimum.
Well, the bare minimum was 2% investment into NATO, because I think now you're talking about NATO without calling it NATO. Now they are at 2.1%, and they claim to be at 2.3%. That's when it talks about Germany, for instance.
2% commitment, which they contribute or they pledged to do a year ago, I find completely unacceptable. It's a good deal for their politicians, They don't have to make the tough choices, but to say somehow that I think the burden sharing should actually be disproportionate on their side of the ledger, not the other way around. And until we force those tough conversations to happen, as somebody in my one of my local groups said, look, if you all got members of a club and only a third of them are paying their full dues, what are the rest going to do? They're going to keep getting away with it. And I just don't think that's fair to the United States, and it's not acceptable in terms of collective security.
Yeah, I mean, you have Poland, who's pushing 5% GDP on defense, and then Canada, who's about 1.2, I think, and they have some vague plans to get there.
Or France, that has an economy France has an economy 4 times the size of Poland's, and yet is contributing a fourth.
Well, Poland is kind of at the border, and it's bordering Ukraine. And if you do not protect Ukraine, Poland will be the next. So let's not compare it. Also, I don't trust the France numbers.
Even if you really want to get into the weeds on this, some of the things they are contributing. I mean, Reuters had an article on a tranche of German tanks that the Germans provided the Ukrainians. And as desperate the Ukrainians are, they gave them back. They said, these things are in such bad shape, it'll cost us more to fix them.
Okay, enough of this guy. And that's why I explained you why they're in such bad shape, right? Because Poland or German take everything that they can use and give whatever they can because they're afraid they're not going to get anything better. Okay, so for this reason, when I see people chopping off this video at 1.5 minutes, like 90 seconds, and putting that up, that he is so, he will do what Biden couldn't do. He will have so many balls and all that kind of stuff. Watch the entire video. I know it's 8 minutes, but you gotta engage your brain and watch it. Yash. Hey, Yash says, see, no argument right now is going to change the fact that Trump is going to pull out all aid from Ukraine, and all we can do is expect the countries from Europe and the Pacific to do the right thing. Exactly. And also fight. Yeah, Walls. The rest of the world is just laying down, doing nothing. They also don't toot themselves as being the greatest country in the world. Exactly. So, what's the tank thing real about them not being in good working order? That's what I told you, right? They were not in good working order because parts of it were taken to use for themselves, and they would give Ukraine whatever they can. Yeah. Okay, so moving on. If you were, well, my question is, this is just my observation. So somehow the Mar-a-Lago crowd is very nervous about the appointing those folks, and they say that we need recess appointments in the Senate, without which we will not be able to get people confirmed in a timely manner. Sometimes the votes can take 2 years or more. So, and then the Musk says, well, without this appointments, it will take 2 years or more. He's just confirming it. Well, many of them can pass the background check, so they will call them Tsar. And it's very interesting, as somebody who grew up in Eastern Europe and has learned certainly Russian history and all that kind of Prussia and all that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting that you're going to have a whole cabinet of Tsars. That's very interesting. And so what, Trump will be emperor proceeding over overseeing Tsars. So they're going to have, hello, I'm a Tsar. Good morning, Tsar. How are you, Tsar? Everybody's Tsar. Very interesting names and very Russian too. Now, if you were thinking about immigrating to Canada, listen to this.
We will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years. This builds on our previously announced measures to cap international student permits and reform the temporary foreign worker program, all of which we are implementing with a single aim: stabilize our population growth to give all levels of government time to catch up, time to make the necessary investments in healthcare, in housing, in social services to accommodate more people in the future. Far too many corporations have chosen to abuse our temporary measures, exploiting foreign workers while refusing to hire Canadians for a fair wage. All while, under the watch of provinces, some colleges and universities are bringing in more international students than communities can accommodate, treating them as an expendable means to line their own pockets. That's unacceptable, and it needs to change.
The caps that we put in place are not measures that we took lightly, nor are the measures taken today ones that we're taking lightly without reflection. We are an open country, but not everyone can come to this country. Permanent residency is something that we hold dear. It has a value, as does Canadian citizenship.
God bless Canadians. They also explain it to you and say sorry. Also, Mexico is looking at the illegal or folks who overstayed their welcome in Mexico who came from the US. So under the notion that they have to clean up the space to welcome all of those who will be deported. So, you know, F around, find out. Undisclosed location. Why not stop money going to Ukraine? Why don't you go into timeout? Have a good time. So U.S. citizens won't give asylum. You know, that's a question. So let's continue. Well, okay. In other news, this is something that applies to everybody who is still on X. X is the latest social media site letting third parties use your data to train AI models. So this is new. Starting November 15th, X will share user data, including posts, likes, bookmarks, and reposts with third-party platforms that may use the information to train AI models, including China. So if you care about your privacy, I said what I said. And we deserve it. Yeah, with Canada. Yeah. In other news, Melania Trump will not be joining Donald Trump at the White House on Wednesday. She will not be talking to First Lady Jill Biden. This is a custom. It's not constitutionally, you know, like a prophecy or a rule that you have to welcome presidents. So it's more like a custom. Has been done for a long time, and certainly she's not joining. I'm sure Elon Musk will do just fine. Now, despite urgent speculation in liberal legal circles and some talk among Democratic senators of potentially outright urging Justice Sonia Sotomayor to resign, sources close to her camp told ABC News that she's not expected to step down. So this is something that we should not be entertaining in terms of a rumor. Now, other thing is Trump team explores using tariffs to fund tax cuts, sparking complex congressional talks. So President-elect Biden, I'm just used to it. Trump advisors are in discussions with House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith, Republican, about a potential tax package that could be partially funded by tariffs. These talks explore whether changes to House rules are necessary to use tariffs as offsets for tax cuts. Republicans aim to pass a broad tax bill, which could include $4.6 trillion in expiring Trump-era tax cuts and other proposals from his campaign, such as eliminating tax on tips and Social Security. Trump has long suggested using tariffs to fund tax cuts, and the discussions signal that some Republicans might be open to implementing such strategy. However, raising tariffs through legislation is unprecedented in nearly 100 years. In fact, last time it happened in 1930, and what happened afterwards? A depression. Also, this type of act and this type of using tariffs and eliminating federal tax, that actually what funded Nazi Party. And if you read through it, you will be entertained. While the idea could be included in a reconciliation bill, which would allow Republicans to pass it without Democratic support, there are challenges, including the complexity of legislative rules. Despite Trump's idea of using tariffs to eliminate income tax, it is unlikely tariffs alone could cover the cost of major tax cuts. So, check this out. Tariffs raised only $74.4 billion in 2020, less than 2.2% of total federal revenue. So to replace income tax, in short, entirely through tariffs, an estimated 69.9% across the board tariff increase would be required. That means all of everything will go 70% up. And this is very interesting that you fund tax cuts for 1% by overcharging people by 70% for every single thing. And if you don't believe that you're going to pay more, you're about to wake up and find out how much we don't produce here and we buy. And this will include even your avocado from Mexico. This will include every single thing. So very interesting. So for that reason, when I got this post here from Oprah's favorite things 2024 kickoff holiday season, 100 gifts, everyone on your list, shop, shop, shop. It's like, tone deaf. Love Oprah, but come on now. Professor Snyder put it in a very good way. I think that's the tweet of the day, or actually that's on Blue Sky. Trump is Musk's client. Musk is Putin's client. Putin is Xi's client. I would also say that Musk is also Trump's client, because one is commander-in-chief and can deport him or do whatever with him. So it's they're going to have a fight. That's what I can guesstimate. Now, there's a thing that Russia has issued a statement today. This was issued by Patrushev, which is aide to President of Russia Federation, former chief of FSB, which is like FBI and CIA combined. His son is also, I think, deputy foreign minister or deputy prime minister in Russia right now, rumored to be the replacement for Putin, if, that comes to that at some point. He said today that he issued a warning that US and UK are preparing to blow up underwater fiber optic cable that provide the entire world with internet. Usually, when it comes to, remember the Nord Stream and then the pipes that they damaged, usually they issue such statements accusing the West, as they call it, of something that they're planning on doing. And reportedly, people who are monitoring satellites, people who know this issue, are warning that Russia, in fact, can blow up underwater fiber optic cables, and which could cause 99% of, since the cables facilitate around 99% of internet traffic, also related to any type of communication, phone calls, messages, videos, streaming services, all of that would be affected. Also, financial market instability. The cables are essential for financial transactions, which require real-time data. A disruption would cause delays and inaccuracies, which could lead to a drop in liquidity, cybersecurity risks, damage to critical infrastructure, and damage to marine life. And so I have a full readout in your email, so read more about it. Why would that be of an interest in Russia? And I want you to pay attention to this tweet once again, right? Musk is Putin's client, Putin is Xi's client. It's also being rumored, again, I only put what's factual in the newsletter. I can tell you what I hear. I hear that it's been discussed that Tesla and opening a facility in Russia would be interesting because of natural resources. If something like this would happen, right, with the cables, it could only benefit what? Starlink. Starlink sends around, or has an agreement, it has a license to operate around 5,000 satellites a year in the orbit. And so this is the biggest supplier of, internet or any type of connection. And so certainly sponsored by our tax money. And so today alone, they sent 24 Starlinks into space. Also recently, and this is a weird thing, on Friday, Ukrainians, specifically in Kharkiv, near the front lines, have been reporting. I saw videos, I can show it to you, I'll post it, in full Starlink lines, because they come in a line, like in the sky, hanging over the front line area. And then next day, the fresh satellite images appeared on Google Maps, and Russians downloaded it, started regrouping their troops. Ukrainians called Google. The Google said, oh, it's a weekend, we can remove it. All of this went down. I reported on it last week. So, it's interesting how that is connected. So all of that could only profit somebody who has an alternative, which Starlink is. Also, radio is such an alternative. So, not to scare anybody, but just to share. Now, remember, Russians shared a welcome message for Melania Trump, right? I guess, first lady elect, showing her porn shoots, right? And they said, oh, ha ha ha, she's naked, blah, blah, blah. So now today, and this is very late night, they published an article in Russian newspaper where this Patrushev guy, who talks about the blowing up cables, underwater fiber cables, he spoke interestingly about Trump's strategy. And so in order not to lie or anything, here's the exact article, and I'll read it out to you. Okay, so Nikolai Patrushev agreed that Trump, when he was still a candidate, made many statements critical of destructive foreign and domestic policies pursued by the current administration. So in his future policies, including those on the Russian track, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will rely on the commitments to the forces that brought him to power, rather than an election pledges. Russian presidential aide Nikolai Patrushev, aide to Putin, told the Daily Kommersant in an interview. This is today, November 11th. The election campaign is over, Patrushev noted. To achieve success in the election, Donald Trump relied on certain forces to which he has corresponding obligations. As a responsible person, he will be obliged to fulfill them, end unquote. He agreed that Trump, when he was still a candidate, made many statements critical of the destructive foreign and domestic policies pursued by the current administration. And I'll quote, but very often election pledges in the United States can diverge from subsequent actions, he recalled. Republican Donald Trump outperformed the candidate Harris, blah, blah, blah. So, how do you take it? I take it as Donnie. Good morning, Donnie. You got elected. It's time to pay the dues. Yeah? 2017. Where? Is it 2017? No, it's 1727. It's very new. I'm a business attorney, former defense family law attorney, so I'm not a financial advisor, but I know what assets can be transferable. Okay, you guys are discussing something. There was a World War II veteran in Germany who had a Panther tank on his basement. Now that's okay. That's what you guys are discussing. Okay. No, it's not 2017. It's very fresh. And certainly it's like a reminder as to, hey, greetings. Get rest. Oh, it's like 5:30. I think Lisa has to go to bed. Okay, good night. Good night, everybody, if you need to go. Okay, catch us in the morning. So also what I shared, and this is really quick, as to Poland. Remember I said that Poland and Polish president, foreign minister are all, to talk with Trump. And so Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk emphasized the crucial announcements regarding a potential ceasefire in Ukraine, the borders it would cover, and security guarantees for Kyiv are expected soon. Tusk also referenced the ongoing preparation of a plan for Ukraine by U.S. President-elect Trump, details of which can have been partially revealed by the media. That's what I shared with you. These will certainly be decisions involving less U.S. interference in Ukrainian affairs, he added. Polish President Andrzej Duda plans to travel to the United States to talk with Trump, quote, and that's what Tusk says. I will keep my fingers crossed for him because regardless of the differences in views and the fact that President Duda's presidential term is coming to an end soon, he has invested a lot in establishing good relations with Trump, and we can use this together for Polish-American conversations, especially in the context of Ukraine. Now, note, Again, freezing the conflict would allow Russia to retain occupied territories and rebuild its forces, especially if sanctions were lifted. And so Trump's team is also discussing lifting sanctions on Russia. And so then they even need North Korea less, because then they will be able to trade and rebuild. You know, this is incredible. It's really in the open. My question is, and please tell me, maybe I'm forgetting, was it like this when it comes to foreign policy? Because again, I was diplomat at the UN. I wasn't focused on local or national security policy or foreign policy. Was it always that after election, a current administration would check out and the new one will make decision? Or does it stand out to you the way it stands out to me? Like, whoa, why is he deciding? That's what I keep thinking. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe it's always like this, but certainly I don't know. Lifting sanctions on Russia, yes. Yes, Brandon, that's what they're discussing. I was wondering if we get all money out of those Russian assets. Good that you are asking. That's what Zelensky actually is asking too. You are like-minded. So now you will have to read. I think it's translated, but it has subtitles. Zelensky calls for the West to release $300 billion